natural that there's going to be a contest to choose the candidates right across New South Wales in the weeks and months ahead. Now, that's one of the privileges of being a member of the Liberal Party or the National Party. You get a say in who your candidate will be. We're not like the Labor Party, where the union officials get together and decide which puppet will be placed in the Parliament with the backing of particular unions. We have a democratic process. It's rigorous, and I am certain that it will be resolved in the appropriate democratic way over the weeks ahead.
Does Bronwyn Bishop deserve to recontest the next election, or does Bronwyn Bishop deserve to recontest the next election, or should she make room for new blood?
Well, Bronwyn Bishop has made a great contribution to the Parliament. She's been one of the outstanding figures of the Australian political scene for a long time. I have no doubt that she has a lot yet to contribute. The decision about whether or not she wants to run is entirely Bronwyn's and her divisional council. They will choose a candidate, and Bronwyn, if she chooses to run, I'm sure will be a very, very strong contender.
One last question. Has the Nationals been promised a frontbench position by the Prime Minister?
Well, the Prime Minister has said publicly that as a result of the increase in the size of the inner ministry, that the Nationals are entitled to another position, and one would expect that that issue would be resolved next time there's a reshuffle, and that's our position as well.
Just one on media reform.
Sorry?
On media reform, on media ownership. Are you going to push for the policies put forward by the working group around new requirements for presences in local communities?
Well, the Nationals are very keen to ensure that there is a local presence, and that the privilege of having access to spectrum carries with it an obligation to serve the whole of the country, or to serve in particular the licence area, and that obviously does involve local news services and indeed a capacity to serve the local community in emergency times and in other instances. So we don't care particularly who owns the stations. We just want there to be a commitment to deliver local services and to deliver them in an effective way. And if there's to be any changes to the legislation, that will be the kind of objective we'll be looking to secure. It does seem a bit odd to me that the ABC, which is of course charged with delivering services to the whole of the country, is not obliged to provide television news services in regional communities. Now, I think it should be. I think the ABC should have a presence in regional communities that is capable of delivering not just radio news services, but also television news services, and that would certainly enrich the variety and the capacity of local communities to be well informed about what's happening in their areas.
What do you think about Senator Canavan's idea to split the ABC into urban and rural divisions to ensure that they actually produce some news for the regions? Well,
I think it's appropriate to debate those sort of issues in these circumstances. I don't personally favour a split in the ABC. I would just like their culture to change so that it is a bit less Sydney-centric and capital city-centric, and makes a genuine and real commitment to regional communities. But I think that to divide it is unlikely to build a stronger ABC. If in fact it's not adequately resourced in regional communities, there won't be an improved performance. What we want is a culture change. I strongly support elements of the proposed private members bill from Bridget McKenzie, which looks at making sure that there are people from regional communities on the board of the ABC, making sure that there is a real commitment to the regional communities and a presence that can capture the culture and the spirit of regional communities. It's all very well to say you're living in Sydney and you've got access to a phone and all sorts of modern technology, and so therefore you understand life in the country. But in reality that doesn't happen, and it is my great fear that the divide between country and city, instead of narrowing, is actually growing. That so much of our nation now is urbanised, so many people live in the capital cities, that it's just natural that resources are being divided devoted heavily to that capital city environment. And the country areas are not just a novelty. They're not just a part of our history and a part of our what we like to think about our country and its heroism and its stoicism. It's actually the part of our country that contributes enormously to our nation's national wealth. It produces most of our export income and needs to be respected as a part of our industry and our commerce and our lifestyle.
Does the Charter need to change maybe to give the politicians more leverage over ensuring these objectives?
No, the ABC needs to be independent, and everyone accepts that. But I think the ABC will earn a greater respect in the community if it demonstrates that it takes its responsibilities in that regard seriously, and that its culture can embrace people who live in regional communities just as strongly as those who live in the capital cities. That it can recognise that there's a broad spectrum of views. Not everybody is a radical liberal moving forwards. Some people believe in the old values and the things that our country has prized in the past. That needs to be respected as a part of our culture too.
Should they focus less on online, where there's plenty of private companies publishing, various titles, and more on the regions? Is that somewhere where they could save some money if they were to pull back from that presence?
Well, I think that they will have to embrace new technology, and country people want to embrace new technology as well. And there's no doubt in my mind that the future of news will be very different than what it is now. We're already seeing the struggles that newspapers are having to be commercially viable. That is particularly true in regional communities. The local newspaper is no longer very local. You're lucky to have 1 or 2 pages in your provincial daily that deals with local news. Most of the news is being fed on the line by Canberra bureaus and out of network news services. Now that's a part of the loss of localism that I regret, and that's why having television stations and radio stations that also have a commitment to local areas is going to be so important in the future. So I recognise the changes there, that the costs are different. They don't sell as many newspapers, and therefore the budgets are not as high as they would wish to be, and that does result in a deterioration of service. So I think it'll be different. We've got to be innovative. We've got to be prepared to do things differently, and we just want country communities to have access to the same technology and same services and capabilities that people in the cities take for granted. Okay. Thank you.
That was the Acting Prime Minister and Minister for Infrastructure and Regional Development, Warren Truss, speaking there at Canberra Airport.